George Washington had led his country to victory over its colonial masters. He was hailed America's hero. But the newly independent United States of America was fragile. The army, unpaid and mutinous, was threatening a coup. Washington, the master of gesture, once again came to the rescue, addressing a meeting of the rebellious soldiers.
He started to read a letter, found he had difficulty reading it, and he put on his spectacles. It's the first time that he'd ever put on his glasses in public, and said to the people there, "You'll forgive me, not only have I grown gray in the service of my country, but I find I'm growing blind as well." This human touch, according to the eyewitnesses there, almost everyone was in tears. He had won the day, and he left the room.
George Washington returned to his beloved Mount Vernon. After 8 years at war, he set about rebuilding his neglected plantation. He had pledged in his farewell address to his army that he would be leaving public life forever. But the more he shunned power, the more people pressed it upon him.
There's this tension in Washington where he's both drawn to fame and yet wants privacy. And there's a constant tension. It's back and forth throughout his life. But there's no one more sincere when he leaves that he thinks that this is the end of his public career, and he vows that he will spend the rest of his life gently going down the stream of life until he sleeps with his fathers, as he put it to Lafayette.
A convention was called in Philadelphia to write the nation's constitution. This would lay the foundations for an independent America. Although retired, Washington knew it was his duty to attend.
Washington was most reluctant to attend the Constitutional Convention for a number of reasons. But perhaps the biggest reason of all is he knew that he had such tremendous prestige that he could bring to this convention. And he did not want to blow that prestige by coming to a convention that might fail.
He was unanimously elected president of the Constitutional Convention, who attended every session, conducted it with honor and integrity. He didn't speak much during the convention itself, but I still think his influence was very significant and his presence absolutely essential.
Washington's presence shaped a new republic. The convention decided the nation should be led by one man, a president.
The debate sometimes got quite awkward because people were talking about creating this presidency and would this president someday become a tyrant, and there standing right in front of them was Washington, who would become the first president.
But it was with a heavy heart that he accepted the presidency. In April 1789, he left for his inauguration in New York.
I bade adieu to Mount Vernon, to private life and to domestic felicity, and with a mind oppressed by more anxious and painful sensation than I have words to express, set out to render service to my country in obedience to its call, but with less hope of answering its expectations.
Washington both desires fame and fears failure. So he wants to be in the spotlight, but he's already got his reputation. And a very strong part of him does not want to become president. Why risk the reputation you have on an extremely difficult position, yet alone the fact that he wants to be at Mount Vernon? He's getting old. Washington's life was not his own when his country demanded it, and he could not, as a patriot, refuse the call of duty if it was clear and unmistakable. And so time and time again, he answers that call, even at significant and great personal sacrifice.
He was the leader of a new country with no money, inexperienced government, and few foreign allies.
When Washington became president, he said, "The eyes of Argus are upon us, and everything we do are going to be carefully scrutinized." And he said, because it's the beginning, little things we do which might not seem of importance will set precedents. And it's really remarkable as you look back, considering the untried ground that he went over, how wise he was over and over again in the decisions he made.
After 4 difficult years as president, he resolved to resign. But America was still fragile. and he was persuaded to stay for a second term.
Turns out to be a very, very heavy burden that took a tremendous toll on him, and he lost a lot of his personal freedom, which he desperately wanted, in order to achieve what was to him an even greater goal.
13 quarrelsome little colonies, each with their own agenda, had to be brought together, and Washington was the only man who could do it. He had become the embodiment of the new America, and as such became a target for criticism whenever anything went wrong.
Well, Washington did not cope with criticism very well. He was a very demanding man, and he was, in some respects, insecure. And he was a very unforgiving man. And anybody who questioned his actions really became an enemy of Washington's. He turned against them.
After 8 years as president, he determined to leave public life for good. Old, tired, and desperately disillusioned, he dug out the farewell address he had written 4 years previously. Its message was heartfelt.
The core message is unity. George Washington's the great unifier. He believes that the answer to how to have personal freedom and liberty is through a strong, united government. Don't love any country too much. Don't hate any country too much. Either one will lead you to act against your own interest. The goal is to establish an independent America, a strong, united America.
In 1797, George Washington handed over the presidency and returned to his beloved Mount Vernon. For 2 years he enjoyed life, receiving a steady stream of visitors and tending his plantation. Then early one winter morning, he rode out to inspect his estate. When he returned, he complained of a sore throat. A fever developed, and 2 days later, on the 14th of December, 1799, he died. He was 67 years old.
I think Washington is really the absolutely indispensable man in the creation of the American nation. He's the central point, and therefore, to me, he really is the premier American statesman, in my own judgment, bar none.